the world's 11th largest economy, ranking 15th out of 140 countries in global competitiveness and first in macroeconomic stability. The Chamber is here in Seoul, the thriving capital city of Korea, to offer comprehensive coverage of the Korean and global economies. I'm your host, Panita Bajaj. This week on the show, we zoom in on Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's first visit to Korea with our panelist Todd Sample and our special guest Chung Jae-wook, head of the Africa and Middle East team at the Korea Institute for International Economic Policy.
So for those of you interested in Korea's economy and what goes on around the world, we are here in Seoul, the economic hub of Northeast Asia. So let's get to it and step into the chamber.
President Moon Jae-in and Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman held a meeting here in Seoul.
لأن المملكة العربية السعودية قد وضعت خطة للتحول
Hello and welcome to the Chamber. Good to have you once again, Todd Sample here in the studio, as well as Chung Jae-wook, head of Department of Africa and Middle East Regional Economy at the Korea Institute for International Economic Policy. Thank you for joining us here on the show today. Hope you're doing very well. It's supposed to be the hottest day of the year today. Perhaps it's not as
cool in here, though.
Yeah, not as hot as Saudi Arabia. Who knows? Well, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman visited Korea not too long ago, last month for a couple days, and met with President Moon Jae-in, Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon, and a number of Korea's top business leaders as well. And it seems like they have quite an interesting relationship, and it seems like perhaps it's going to change a little bit more as the world is going green as well. Now, expectations are growing that the visit has laid the groundwork for what they call a second Middle East boom for the Korean economy. Now, can you give us a little background information for those of us who aren't really familiar with this topic, who this Crown Prince is and why this is such an immense story, a lot of anticipation following his visit?
Yeah. So as well known, the Saudi Arabia is one of the largest oil producers in the world. So it has the second largest proven oil reserves and the sixth largest gas reserve in the world. So on top of that, it is the only G20 country in the Middle East located in the connecting hub, the Asia, Africa, and Europe. Also, the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud is a Crown Prince of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and heir to his father, custodian of the two holy mosques, the King Salman. Actually, the Mohammed bin Salman has a lot of the positions, but just let me name a few. And he is the first vice prime minister of the kingdom, while the prime minister is actually the King Salman. And also he is the minister of the defense and the chair of the council for the economic and the development affairs. And because of actually the illness and some the advanced age of the King Salman, whose age is 83. So Mohammed bin Salman is considered to be, the true power of the kingdom.
Right.
Yeah, so that's why, that his nickname is the Mr. Everything.
Mr.
Yeah,
Everything.
yeah.
I mean, he's got it all at such a young age.
Indeed, indeed. So obviously, considering all the roles that he's playing and the importance of Saudi Arabia to Korea and vice versa, his visit recently was a big event. And
Sure.
obviously, Saudi Arabia is Korea's largest trading partner in the Middle East. Last year, trade volume was over $30 billion. And of course, the talks that President Moon Jae-in and the Crown Prince had during his visit to Korea focused a lot on cooperation and growing the areas in which that cooperation takes place.
Well, you mentioned that Saudi Arabia is Korea's #1 oil producer, supplier, and thus a very important trading partner. Well, how can we see what kind of status the Korean market has in Saudi Arabia?
So actually, the crude oil and gas take about 80% of the total export of Saudi Arabia. So the Korea is the second largest Asian exporting market of Saudi Arabia and the fourth largest among the world as of the 2017, and after the China, US, and Germany. So not only an exporting market, the Korea is also an important investment destination of the Saudi Arabia, and the SOR, one of the major petroleum company in Korea, the state-owned oil company, the Saudi Aramco, hold the majority share of the SOR with 83% of shares. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with that amount of shares come a huge amount of money as well. He signed $8.3 billion business deal with Korea during his visit, and there were many included in that deal as well. So, what do you think has made the Crown Prince sign this? What made him continue the relations? Where he is next in throne, next in line. He could change things, but what was his incentive?
So I think the Crown Prince is not just the successor to the throne, but also kind of top level reformer in Saudi Arabia, and he is leading kind of the future plan for Saudi Arabia for the post-oil era, so which is called the Vision 2030, and the vision is based on some the three pillars like the vibrant society, the thriving economy, and the ambitious nation. So it is not just an economic development plan, but more like the social reform plan for the Saudi Arabia. And the key question actually behind the Vision 2030 is what will be the economic source for the Saudi Arabia after oil? Okay, so the actual economic diversification policy, the focus on the non-oil sectors are actually very common in this region. But I think the Vision 2030 is the unique and important because it focuses on the new generation technologies. So like the AI or the 5G like that. Korean companies have competitiveness in these the sectors. That's why I know the Crown Prince already revealed his interest in many the Korean major firms in this sector, and why that he visited for this region this time.
So that Saudi Vision 2030 that you mentioned obviously is, of course, to help reduce the country's reliance on oil and, as you mentioned as well, to diversify its economy. And I'm aware that there are 8 strategic partners for this project, and of which Korea is one. So do you feel that this is perhaps Saudi's desire to perhaps benchmark Korea in terms of which industries are strong and something like that?
So the Korea is one of the strategic partner country of the Saudi Arabia on this Vision 2030. So including China, Japan, India, and a couple of other the countries. Mm-hmm. And I think it is true that the Saudi Arabia has interest in the economic development history of Korea. But the Saudi Arabia and the Korea have a little bit, the different economic background. So it is hard to say, the Korea would be the best benchmark for the Saudi in terms of economics. But the Crown Prince is really interested in, the story of Korea. So how so fast, the South Korea, they built the world-class manufacturing industries, and how the Korean government actually led and support, the private sector. Actually, the Korean government is already has several projects with the Saudi Arabian government on the government capacity building, through the Saudi Korea Vision 2030 committees.
I see. Interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. Just visiting Dubai, United Arab Emirates, a few years ago, you can see the similarities between the two nations. How, in Korea we say it's a very pari-pari nature, and as well as these Arabs, they're very quick to adapt, quick to spot opportunities and deals, and really act quick as well. Economic exchanges between the two nations have started since the 1970s, and it's been an array of infrastructure and plant construction that we've seen growing here in Korea as well. And now bilateral cooperation has gotten much more diversified, as you said. So let's take a look at the details of the recent deal signed between Korea and Saudi Arabia during Crown Prince's recent visit.
On June 26th, the Crown Prince met with President Moon Jae-in at the presidential office of Cheongwade and signed a series of memorandums of understanding and agreements worth $8.3 billion.
양국은 기존의 건설 에너지 분야를 넘어서 정보통신기술, 스마트 인프라 등 신산업 분야, 보건 의료 교육 등 민생과 직결된 분야 등으로 협력의 지평을 확대시켜 나가고 있습니다.
فالمملكة العربية السعودية لديها تجربة رائعة جدا مع كوريا الجنوبية في السابق، نريد أن نكررها بشكل أفضل وأكبر لمصلحة البلدين.
The two leaders also discussed ways to boost cooperation in the shipbuilding and petrochemical industries, also in eco-friendly automobile technology, hydrogen energy, and robots. In terms of the hydrogen economy, the two sides agreed to work together to develop technologies for the production, storage, and transport of hydrogen, and on projects concerning hydrogen-powered vehicles. Plus, during the Crown Prince's visit, there were huge deals signed between Saudi companies and Korea's S-Oil, Hyundai Heavy Industries, Hyundai Oil Bank, and Hyundai Motor, among others. The Saudi state-run oil company, Saudi Aramco, in particular, signed a total of 12 agreements with Korean partners. As the top shareholder of S-Oil, Korea's third-largest refiner, Aramco pledged to invest an additional $6 billion in S-Oil for its new petrochemical complex. With Hyundai Heavy Industries, Aramco signed a deal to jointly invest $420 million to build a ship engine plant at the King Salman Global Maritime Industries Complex in Saudi Arabia. Furthermore, Saudi Arabia's Advanced Global Investment Company and Korea's SK Gas signed a memorandum of understanding for the development of a propane dehydrogenation and polypropylene project in Saudi Arabia. It's no exaggeration to say that Crown Prince bin Salman's visit enhanced the already strong partnership between Korea and Saudi Arabia. With the economic deals as momentum, we hope relations will also rise to a new level.
Now again, Saudi Arabia is the world's second largest crude oil producer and the largest economy in the Arab world that is known for its oil-based wealth. But I gotta say, that's a ton of money, $8.3 billion US.
That is a lot of money, of course, for Saudi Arabia, but I think it's a sign that they're extremely aware of the reality of their situation, that the oil-based wealth that they've seen historically, is now rather quickly coming to an end. So they're in a rush to find alternative ways of helping their government and their country grow. And I think, again, as you mentioned, they look at Korea as a benchmark that has developed so quickly in such a short amount of time to a level that any country in the world would probably be envious of. So I think that sense of urgency that the Crown Prince had with him when he arrived in Korea was probably one of the main drivers behind his desire to create as many opportunities to tie up with Korean companies or agencies, organizations during his visit.
That's right. I think just recently I went to Jeju once again for a holiday, and I was shocked to see actually how many electric cars there are. And there are a number of stations, of course, but many people are opting to go green and go for the electric cars. And as you said, that puts a little strain on the oil business. But briefly mentioned before, Saudi Arabia and Korea signed a number of MOUs and agreements. Digging into the details, first of all, Saudi Aramco signed a $6 billion deal with Korea's S-Oil. What are your views on that?
The Saudi government and the Saudi Aramco, which is the state-owned oil company, has a long-term strategies to boost up their position in the oil sector, especially in the the upstream, the more the technology advanced, and the value added, the sector. In addition, actually the SAGIA and the Saudi Arabia, the General Investment Authority, also signed several MOU with the Korean petrochemical companies.
Yeah, I think to give our viewers a point of reference on the actual size of this company, you asked about $8.6 billion. Of course, if I check my pockets, I don't have that in my pocket, but from a Saudi scale, it's quite different. And in 2018, the revenue generated by Saudi Aramco alone was over $220 billion, which is a huge number, but to put that into some perspective, that is bigger than the generated earnings of Apple and Samsung combined. So this is one of the largest, probably the largest company in the world, not just the largest power company, but one of the largest companies in the entire world.
So now 8.6 doesn't
it's
seem that
pennies to you and me.
some pocket change as well. But Saudi Aramco also signed an MOU with Hyundai Motor for the cooperation in hydrogen energy in that sector as well. So we're going more towards renewable energy for Saudi Arabia, as it's one of the world's top 3 oil-producing nations. Why do you think they want to develop hydrogen fuel cell technology?
The Hyundai Motors that take a world-leading position in this actually technology, because the Saudi Arabia needs to diversify the energy source from the crude oil, the hydrogen energy as one of the great the potential candidate actually for Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has a huge potential and somewhat advantage in this hydrogen energy industry. Basically, the hydrogen exists as a compound in the nature. So that means combined with other elements. For instance, the water is a combination of the hydrogen and oxygen. And the hydrogen compound, the most common hydrogen compound is the hydrocarbons, like crude oil, the natural gas. So, to make the hydrogen, so it is natural way is to extract the hydrogen from natural gas or the crude oil. So it is one of the most common ways. So Saudi Arabia has the plenty source for the hydrogen.
Oh, interesting. So they already have these things and they're just extracting.
Yeah, but they need the technology.
I see.
Yeah.
Right, so on the topic of technology, one of the important meetings that the Crown Prince had during his visit to Korea recently was with Lee Jae-young, chairman of Samsung, where the two discussed, among other things, 5G, AI, and in that respect, do you feel that perhaps Korea can assist Saudi Arabia with their economic diversification from a more technological perspective? What are your thoughts on that?
I think so. Yeah, Saudi Arabia already launched the several R&D and the startup investment projects under the Vision 2030, and the chairman Son, the SoftBank from Japan, already made a very close tie with the Saudi Arabia to support the Vision Fund. Okay. And the Samsung and the LG Electronics are really the top candidate, I think, for Saudi Arabia as the partner on the next generation technology. But it's worth noting that it takes time, to realize and implement the plans of Saudi Arabia to become manufacturing and the R&D, the center in this technology.
Yeah, I think that reliance on oil from an economic perspective is one thing that they have to take into account, but also changing the mindset of, okay, now we have to do something different. So for a country that really just relied on oil for such a long time, and now in a very short amount of time is required to change direction or directions very, very quickly, it's going to take a little bit of time to adjust to that, I'm sure.
Yeah, sure.
From the ties that were established during this visit, what kind of effect do you think that this is going to have on the Korean economy?
I think this will be a great opportunity for Korea as well as the Saudi Arabia. So as you mentioned, the Korea-Saudi Economic Cooperation has been focused on, the crude oil sector and maybe, infrastructure constructions. The Crown Prince revealed his interest in, the hydrogen cars, shipbuilding, defense technology, biomedical, technology, and ICT, where, the Korean companies have, the leading capacity in. So the Saudi can make kind of the win-win outcome, from this partnership with, Korea technology and the Saudi, financial and the natural resources.
So you're kind of a representative for the Middle East nations, and for someone like me who doesn't really recognize on how big the scale is of his visitation and the success of the relationship between the two nations, can you summarize in short what that means?
So I think he is the most influential figures in not only in Saudi Arabia but in the Middle East. So actually, this time visit is the first time for him, his visit, although it's very short, but it has a lot of meaning, I think. And also, let me add just one more thing. So I think making Team Korea strategies is important for in this region. This time visit of the Mohammed bin Salman is like may highlight a few the large companies mostly the signed on the the MOUs, but the small and the medium-sized enterprises also have a great potential in this region. So especially the kind of the alliance of the large firm, small and medium-sized firm with the Korean government and the financial the supporting authorities as a team can make a breakthrough in this region, because the most of the projects are very huge, so not even the one company can handle that. Yeah.
Sure. So that whole team effort, as you mentioned, is a really important part of the Korean approach, because whatever projects take place, as you mentioned, there's going to be a lot of economic spillover with other companies, even other areas of industry. And so when we think about that, that explains the scale and how it's different than perhaps relations that Korea has with many other countries.
Well, today we zoomed in on Saudi Crown Prince bin Salman's visit to Korea and the accomplishments it's yielded. I mean, talking back to the Middle East and Saudi Arabia as well, playing an important role in Korea's early economic development from way back when in the 70s. And now it's time for another economic boom once again. We'll see. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Well, thank you very much, Todd, for being on the show, as well as Chung-wook. Hope to see you soon once again. Well, that's all the time we have for today. If you have any questions regarding Korea's economy and what goes on around the world, we are here to answer your questions. Feel free to join us on social media, and we'll see you next week, same time, same place on The Chamber. that went very fast.